Thank you so much for joining us all the way from Chile, and I love the backdrop with Latin America perfectly in view there. Excellent. I haven't given your background yet to everyone who's watching, and it's always handy for me actually if you recap on it. So I thought we'd just start off by a little bit of context about how you got into circular economy back in Chile.
Sure. I'm a mechanical engineer from the Universidad Técnica Santa Maria in Chile with a master's degree in mechanical engineering from the University of Madison, Wisconsin in the US, with several entrepreneurship innovation courses in different universities around the world. I'm an entrepreneur. I'm part of this big family of entrepreneurs called Endeavor. I'm part of the directors board also in Chile. And I'm the CEO and co-founder of this family business that is called Neptuno Pumps, that is located in the north of Chile, right in the driest place on earth, in the Atacama Desert.
And what does Neptuno Pumps do?
We design and manufacture centrifugal pumps for industrial applications, for really heavy-duty applications with a lot of abrasive and corrosive fluid transportation in different industries.
Okay. So pumps, and actually in quite an extractive industry, where is the link there between working in that and circular economy?
Well, the world market of pumps, it's around $21 billion per year. And it's a really important technology and equipment for the civilization as we know it. I mean, everything is related to water, all the industries and all our cities and societies. And they are so important that sometimes they become invisible. And the thing is that the turnaround sometimes is so big that this linear model was really used to buy new pumps and throw away the old ones. So we saw a business opportunity in this huge market in order to create the first circular economy business model with industrial pumps.
Okay, great. So actually, as we go through this discussion more broadly about circular economy in Latin America today, some of this is also informed by your experience in the family business, working with pumps and remanufacturing of pumps in order
Absolutely.
Okay, great. And there is one other hat that you wear that we were discussing before this. You've moved slightly from just direct entrepreneurship to also working with inspiring an ecosystem of other entrepreneurs, which I believe is called the Center for Innovation of Circular Economy. Is that right?
That's right. Yeah, this trip started 7 years ago with Neptuno Pumps. We started promoting the circular economy in Chile and in Latin America, but shortly we saw that our network was growing so big and so fast around the world that we needed to push the circular economy further. That's why 4 years ago, we founded the first Center of Innovation and Circular Economy in Chile and in Latin America, and we're really happy to be present right now, not only in Chile, but also in Peru, Colombia, Mexico, and Ecuador.
Okay, great. And just to give me an idea, this Center for Innovation, who is that really working with?
Right now, we're working with governments, policymakers, entrepreneurs, and organizations around Latin America.
Okay, great. All right, well, I'm sure we'll return to that later because it sounds like a lovely ecosystem that's involved with that. But the title of today's discussion was around how circular economy and the fourth industrial revolution can help drive prosperity in Latin America. There's some big words in there, and for context, I wanted to hear your thoughts on what really the fourth industrial revolution means. What does prosperity in Latin America mean? What does circular economy in Latin America mean? Give us your thoughts on what these big, heavy words actually mean.
Yeah. Well, before describing the fourth industrial revolution, we need to know that we had 3 previous industrial revolutions. So the first one was with steam or vapor powered, second, automatization, third, the internet, and right now, what we call the connection of atoms with bits, the connection of the physical world with the digital world is what we call the fourth industrial revolution. And there are some important things to say when we talk about or discuss about the fourth industrial revolution in Latin America, because our region particularly didn't had a really big role on the first 3 industrial revolutions. That's why we think that through the circular economy, Latin America can leapfrog to a fourth industrial revolution because all the technologies that the Industry 4.0 has created allow the creation of new circular business models, and the circular economy promotes the creation of these new technologies.
That's interesting. I would have thought that actually, well, I wasn't aware so much of the idea that perhaps Latin America hadn't participated as much in the other industrial revolutions that have happened. What are you thinking about when you're saying actually those previous revolutions haven't sort of haven't had the full take up in Latin America? Why do you say that?
In fact, we had a role, but in terms of providing the world and specifically the more developed countries with our resources, natural resources. For example, the place that I'm right now in the Atacama Desert had a huge role with salt pepper and allowed the industrialization of agriculture around the world. The same for copper, the same for other important materials. But we didn't play a role in terms of developing new technologies or in the creation of great industries in our region. So that's the opportunities we see right now, that with the democratization of the fourth industrial revolution, because when we see the lowering of the prices of technology, we can see that right now we can really industrialize the countries of Latin America, and at the same time creating a circular economy business model.
Okay, great. So I'm getting a sense actually that for you, what's exciting about the fourth industrial revolution is almost the localization of it in Latin America, that actually this can be something that you can really, you have a sense that it can lead to local innovation that actually Latin America can then capture and potentially export the example to other places. Is that right? Is that a fair summary?
Yeah, that's right. And I think we can create technologies around the industries, the world-class industries we have in Latin America that are all related to the linear economy or through the production or exploitation of natural resources. I think that's the particularity of the circular economy and the fourth industrial revolution in Latin America, that we can take the advantage of these industries in order to start the transition towards a circular economy.
Okay, interesting. And the other word I wanted to unpack a little bit was prosperity, because I'm very conscious that I think it is something that we would all want to drive towards, but it can mean many things to many different people, and it can sometimes feel a bit too aspirational and perhaps not grounded. So if you were gonna root prosperity in something that you can see as an outcome, like what would prosperity look like in Latin America?
Well, for us, it fits with the triple benefits of the circular economy: creation of high quality jobs, economic growth, sustainable economic growth, and fighting against climate change. Because we need to remember that Latin America and most of our countries are always in the top 10 list of the most threatened places for the climate change. And the other thing is that, as I said before, because we're part of the three first industrial revolutions, we need to create high quality jobs. And I think that through the fourth industrial revolution and the circular economy, we can create those. In fact, there's a super interesting report from the International Organization of Labor that has a special chapter on circular economy in our region, in Latin America, and it says that it can create up to 6 million new high-quality jobs.
Do you have any examples of them? Because a challenge that sometimes comes our way is that if it's about the fourth industrial revolution, actually that's about jobs being automated, and this notion that there will be high-quality jobs perhaps disappears, or perhaps there'll only be very few because it's for the very high-skilled, but it's not going to provide a lot of job opportunities. Do you have examples that can counter that?
Sure, but first let me say that the transformation through or towards a fourth industrial revolution, it's so big because you need to transfer the energy matrix, the communication matrix, and the transportation matrix. So when people are afraid of the job destruction or potential destruction of jobs in Industry 4.0, I think there's no need to worry about that, because we have some examples. For example, in the mining industry, the automatization of all the mineral transportation in the mining industry. I know the case, for example, in one mine site that it provides 2,000 jobs. And right now they think that through automatization, all these 2,000 jobs will be destroyed. But in fact, 3,000 will be created in terms of not only operation, but also in the need of support, creation of new technologies. And that's one really small example of that. Not only we won't destroy jobs here, but we will need more, and we will need to make new workers more skilled on these new jobs and industries.
Okay, great. So there's definitely something around the fourth industrial revolution enabling new ways of working in terms of, for example, automation, a different way in which machinery can work. Other examples that I've seen are also how it can help capture data so that you can track materials more easily, and then that opens up alternative business model opportunities, for example, through sharing or through offering things as a service.
Yeah. For example, in our business, the pump or the fluid transportation business, I mean, what we are doing right now is that our customers, they don't want to own the pumps. Because they don't know what to do when the life cycle ends. So right now, what we're moving towards is to product as service. So I won't sell the pump. I want to sell the cubic meters per second that I'm selling to our customers.
Okay.
And that will need more skillful workers and technicians.
Okay. Well, and zooming out again a little bit from this, what are the triggers in Latin? I know you've mentioned the opportunity that the fourth industrial revolution poses for Latin America. You've also mentioned that actually the pressures of climate change is a reason why perhaps people are looking at a new model. Are there other things that are particular about Latin America, which has currently got an economy that's driven a lot by natural resource extraction? Are there other triggers, therefore, about shifting it to a circular economy that are local to the region?
Yeah, for example, in our region, we generate 160 million tons of solid waste per year. That's 1.1 kilograms per day. And the sad thing is that only 3% of all this waste is recycled or reused. So we have a huge opportunity in the creation of this waste that we know that in the circular economy, waste are resources. And when we compare these numbers to Europe, for example, I studied some data, and the creation or the generation of waste is not that different in Latin America than in Europe. But when you compare the recycling rate, as I said, like here is 3%. Most of the most advanced countries in Latin America, they are up to 10%, and Europe is 60%, 40%, 50%. So the huge opportunity we have there in order to create or generate economic growth, in order to create new jobs that can create wealth from this waste, and the opportunity to generate new business or new circular business models is huge in our region.
You were mentioning that, for example, in your own family business around the pumps, the model is around remanufacturing. Remanufacturing and repairing, is that an industry that's still very much alive in Latin America, or would that sort of need a bit of rekindling?
I think the definition for the last 100 years in Latin America is repairing and remanufacturing. I think it's part of our DNA, and that's why the circular economy makes so much sense in our region. And right now, I think a lot of business companies or family-owned businesses are really comfortable with the concept of the circular economy, because it's so natural for us, and it's like a rebirth of these business models that for the last 60 years, 50 years were considered like bad quality ones, or the businesses that nobody wanted to be involved with. But right now, all these entrepreneurs and these family-owned businesses see a huge opportunity of creating a new story through we've been doing for the last, as I said, 100 years. Yeah, what we've seen in Latin America, and particularly in Chile, is that this movement absolutely started with the entrepreneurs. I mean, entrepreneurs were the driver of this process, absolutely. I've seen the same thing in Mexico with great entrepreneurs, also in Colombia, Peru. And after this, all the governments start supporting and pushing. In the case of Chile, it was great. We have a corporation that supports entrepreneurs that established the circular economy as the backbone of the development strategy in Chile. They also the same thing we're seeing in Mexico as a country. Also in the city of Mexico, which is a country in itself. I mean, it's 22 million people. Chile is 17 million people. So I'm really happy to see that happening also in Mexico. And Colombia, that also has a strategy for the circular economy. So the first step was entrepreneurs, the super powerful ecosystem of entrepreneurs we have in Latin America, and then government and organizations.
What does this mean for local community development? Can local communities be included in this, or actually are they at risk of being excluded from this circular economy, fourth industrial revolution transformation?
I think the circular economy is the only way to include communities. Right now, and through the deindustrialization we had in Latin America and in Chile, communities were excluded from economic development because all the high quality jobs and all the high tech products were designed, manufactured, and repaired overseas. So the jobs that people had in places like my region were not that high quality jobs. And through a circular economy, we can bring back local industries through a circular economy business model that can create these jobs incorporating new technologies.